Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Current. My name's Bo, I'm joined with Curtis. We're excited for another episode. Real talk on real topics. I'm excited to be back. I missed a week.
You did. Yeah, Prudence came in, took over, and I'm not gonna lie, we did incredible.
I'm sure you guys did.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was killer. So what's new today? I know I'm frustrated with my dog.
You're frustrated with your Murphy's doing something?
He keeps throwing up.
Oh, is that, just because he's, eating some crazy stuff, or what's going on with your dog? The people want to know.
Yeah, I want to get rid of him currently.
No.
I don't want to get rid of him. I shouldn't say that. But it's frustrating. I don't think it's to the point where, like, we got to take him to the vet or anything.
I'll tell you what.
It's just annoying.
You know what really helps
I'm
that?
tired of cleaning up.
Not having a dog.
Yeah, exactly. I tell people, I love my dog. But it's just a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. And it's always one of those things where, like, I agree. Abby will take care of the dog, kids will take care of the dog. I end up having
How'd
to
that
take
work
care
out
of
for
the
you?
dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I know that trick. When I was a kid, the dogs come in, I tell my mom, like, don't worry, like, I'll feed it, I'll take it for walks. You don't have to do any of it. But you know who ended up taking care of the dog every time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we should jump in. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Everybody wants to know what's going on with Murphy.
Yeah. But yeah, well, today's episode, we're in Why Church.
Yes.
This is a series we've been doing, talking about why church and why church is important, and talking about some kind of different aspects of church. Before we jump in, though, and make a quick announcement that our podcast, this podcast that you're listening to, or maybe watching on YouTube, is going to be audio only.
Game
Fairly
changer.
soon. Yeah. So those of you that watch on YouTube, I'm very sorry, but we're not going away. Just the video form of us is going away. Mainly because we've had, I don't know, it's been over a year.
Yeah.
Let me ask our producer. It's been over a year. It's been over a year, and so we have some solid data, and the video realm isn't working. It's working to some of you, but the amount of effort, time it takes to do the video editing and all that stuff, it's just not going to pan out, which is fine. I'm glad we tried it.
Yeah.
Of course, it's wonderful. But just kind of want to focus our effort on audio quality, things like that. Like, we want the podcast to be better, and so we're going to drop something to make that happen. And so it just happens to be YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, listen to the podcast. Come September, you will only be able to find it via audio forms. So just so you know, that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really, I think that's the main two. But
Yeah.
you can listen to us there. So put some earbuds in and give us a listen. Don't go away. Just won't be able to watch us, which has always been kind of, I don't know. I feel like I'm awkward on video.
I feel like just about everyone's awkward on video. It'll be good, and I think we're gonna get a bump in audio quality. But also, we want to meet you where you're at and where you happen to be listening, and it tends to be that's the Spotify Apple space. So we're gonna double down, and we're gonna be hanging out there.
Exactly. Yeah. So just a heads up on that. Okay.
Why church?
Why church? What are some things we've talked about already? We've talked about what?
So, yes, good recap. We talked about manifestation. So it's like, hey, how did this whole church thing get started? And then last week we had a lengthy discussion, a good one though, on meetings, which is, okay, what's going on in this space when we're gathering together? Why are we doing this? What is this whole meeting time about when it comes to the church? And today I think might be one of the more exciting ones, or at least for me, I think it's the one that I get jazzed up about, and I think as Rhythm, as a church, this is something we're passionate about too. But today we're going to talk mission.
Yeah, the mission of the church.
Yeah.
Which is a big question. But
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I want to say right off the bat, sometimes when you think mission, just full stop, you think going to another country to talk about Jesus. And I want to say it's a part of mission for sure. But as we're going to talk about, I think it's a little bit of a broader category. What is the mission of the church? What is it supposed to be accomplishing? What is she supposed to be doing?
Yeah. I think a good way to maybe set this up is talk about some misconceptions, or maybe we can start about how the church has got this wrong. I feel like that'd be a good place to start, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe people outside of the church, maybe they're not interested in the church. I think they think the mission of the church might be something that it's not, because churches have failed, I think, to convey what their true mission is. Or it comes across, they might say their mission is something, but their actions tend to be something else.
Yeah. So. What do you feel like you see as some of the largest sort of maybe missteps the church makes in regards to mission?
I feel like one huge one is that Christians, our main goal is to convert people to believe what we believe.
Yeah.
I do. I feel like people outside the church think that that's what we're all about.
Yes.
It's like we're trying to enforce like these beliefs on people, and we're really just trying to convert everybody to what we think and believe.
Yeah, sort of a notion of, as Christians, at the end of the day, really all church is about is trying to get people to say yes about Jesus. And so if I can go around and convert and proselytize as many people to say yes, I'm mission accomplished. And obviously, I want to say it's good when people come to know Jesus. Our hope is that individuals would come to know and embrace a relationship with Jesus. But when we say that, we're not saying like, hey, let me just go give you a gospel tract and let me just try to get you to affirm these propositions and then just kind of move on with my day.
Yeah, and I think people think that because there are, things some groups of Christians do. Like I think about Westboro Baptist, like the stuff they do, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
I think the guy on the street corner with the bullhorn, I think that's kind of the rap sometimes Christians get, is that we're trying to shove this message down people's throats and try to convert people out on the streets just like to start believing. And that's kind of the mission of the church, is just like, we just need a bunch of converts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think you're so right. And this really goes back a bit to, I think, the conversation from the first week, which is to say, I think we'll see some things get a bit out of whack when it comes to our evangelism, when it comes to what we do in our church meetings, all of that, if we don't remember that first week of manifestation. What are we? What are we supposed to be doing? That kind of flows from our origin story. So if we're just saying like, oh, God wanted to, send Jesus and get some people to believe in him, and so here's the group of people believe in him, go try to get other people to believe in him. And if that's the story, okay, but that's not the story we have in the Old Testament. We talked about, the world goes wrong, Adam falls over and messes things up, and the sin's sort of running amok. The world's broken. People aren't living like they should be. And so God hatches a plan and says, okay, I'm gonna call Abraham. When Adam falls, give Abraham a call. This is kind of the Jewish idea. All right, God's relaunching creation. He's relaunching this around this particular community. They're supposed to be God's witness, the people in and through whom God works in the world, right? And the church is supposed to be the inheritor of that story. Paul uses the language of a branch that's grafted into a tree. We aren't natively belonging to it, but we've been grafted into it. And so Israel's story becomes our story. And so I want to see the church looking around and saying, all right, well, what's my mission? Not just to get people to say yes to Jesus, but my mission is to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the community that lives in the world as it is to come. I'm going to be a community that says, like, what does it look like for the world to be put to rights? And let me reflect that to the surrounding culture. And that's a very different story, depending on your starting point.
Exactly. And I've shared this story before, but I think, again, even my understanding of what the church's mission was very skewed, even though I was raised in church. And again, I've shared this before, but when I was a teenager, a group that was called Frontliners came into our church in the summer. And it was like a whole week. It was almost like a VBS, like Vacation Bible School for teenagers.
Oh, okay.
But what they would do is they would come in and they'd host this morning rally. And then we would literally go out across the city, door to door, knocking on people's door, trying to witness to them.
Whoa.
As a teenager, my mom took me here. Like, we had to go do this. We had to we had to knock on people's door who we've never met.
I'm getting so uncomfortable just listening to this.
Tell them about Jesus, to witness, and like that was such a huge thing. I remember being a teenager in youth group. We'd go to camp and the speaker would be up there, and he would be like, and I guarantee you, like 95% of this room never witnessed to one person. You never told one person about Jesus. How can you live? Like, you're going to die someday, and you haven't told one person about Jesus. It was always like this idea of like, our main mission is to witness to people, to testify, it was just such a big theme of me growing up in the church. And so I grew up thinking like, man, if I'm not telling people I don't know, my family or my friends about Jesus, then I'm a failure as a Christian. Like, I'm not really fulfilling the mission that God wants for me.
Yeah, I think it's, a good lie has a little truth in it, I feel as if. And I want to say, sure, as Christians, we should be willing to speak about Jesus, the difference he's made for us, yada, yada. That's true. But when you take that truth and warp it into saying, if you're not knocking door to door and talking to random people about Jesus, and it makes me squirm as I hear you tell that story, because when I was in college, going through Bible college, we had these like practical Christian ministries we were supposed to be a part of every week. And if you missed yours, you had to do some makeups. And so I had to go do a makeup PCM one time. And there's like 2 ministries you can do. And one of them was not available that night. So I had to go to this thing called Frontlines, which is essentially the same thing. It's a student evangelism group. We're going out into the subway. We're like and me and my buddy the whole time were just uber uncomfortable. Now, when we think about mission that way, for me, I almost want to say, let's just look at this like pragmatically. What works? Like what does well? If at the end of the day, our goal is to say, hey, we want people to come to know Jesus, then we want to pick some effective methods. Now, I'm not saying bullhorn guy can't work. I just think bullhorn guy works at a far lesser percentage than someone who says, here's someone that I've come to know. I'm sharing my life with you. I'm letting you into it. I'm letting you first just see the difference Jesus makes, how he makes me rearrange my life. As opportunities come up, I have conversations that are now easier to engage with that person, because this isn't like some sort of attack or like some sort of proselytization, but rather honest conversations about life and how we should navigate it. And so I just find talking about our faith is important, but it comes so much more naturally, and I think it works so much more effectively when we do it in the context of just genuine relationship with people we actually care about.
Yeah. And so I would argue that a big piece of mission, like you were talking about, is community.
Oh, yeah.
Living in community with believers, with people who are following Jesus, and then inviting people into that community. People you already know, people that you have a relationship with, exactly what we're talking about. It's such a game changer. And I always think about, too, like, we should take baseball teams to Omaha. I coached high school baseball, and so we'd take teams to Omaha because the College World Series is there. So we'd play a couple games against high school teams, and we go watch the College World Series. So there's just massive lines, the College World Series. And, of course, there's people there with signs handing out gospel tracts. And I kind of got into it with one of them one time because they handed it to me, and I'm like, oh, I don't need it. Like, I'm actually a pastor. And they're like, well, you should help us. I'm like, I'm not going to help you. I was like, I'm not going to do this today. I'm here with the baseball team, and I was like, I feel like there's better ways. That's what I said. Well, and that made them very mad.
Oh, I'm sure.
They started really like, how is there better ways? They were just like getting very defensive and saying, hey, this is the reason we're here. It's like, there's lost souls going to hell, and like, it's just this language of like there's an urgency, like, like look at all these people in this line, like think about how many people are lost, it's like, I'm like, I get it, you're right, probably a lot, but my goodness, I don't know any of them. Like, I'd much rather like anyway, but it just happens all the time, and that's why I feel like, again, clarifying for some people out there that maybe that's been your experience. You've been to Target and you see a gospel tract up on the, bathroom, a little spot in the bathroom there. Like, that's really not what.
Let me just say, there's a special place in hell for people that drop those like fake $100 gospel tracts. That is messed up. That is some false advertising, a little bait and switch. Yeah, I don't even want to get started on gospel tracts because I'm just going to go off for a little bit here.
But again, like, I think people really believe like that's the mission of the church is like, but
yeah, and again, it's just truncated when the whole mission just becomes getting people to say yes to Jesus. Yeah, we lose out on the bigger picture of the mission of the churches, which I want to say is like, well, yeah, how about we like care for orphans and widows, and what does it look like for us to remember the poor and to do those things? Like, for me, that's as much of the mission of the church as it is to get people to embrace Jesus. Like, obviously Jesus is at the center, but yeah, we're trying to get people to fall into line with a revolutionary society-changing project, which is the kingdom of God. Yep. And Jesus is coming in and saying, hey, this is what it looks like for us to order our societies. These other people are going around hating the people that hate them. We're going to do it differently. We're going to love the people that hate us. Let's see what that does. Other people, again, just read the whole Sermon on the Mount. It's incredible. But to me, we can't, say, hey, get people to follow Jesus without keeping this bigger picture in front of us too. Like, I feel like we're not fulfilling the mission of the church if all we're doing is trying to get people to say yes to Jesus. Like, we're missing a huge chunk.
Yeah. And it's, So, kind of an indicator for me has become in my life, like when I think about the things of God, I think about what is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times, I mean, I just think God is the creator of all things beautiful, of course. And like, I think God is beautiful. Like, his kingdom is beautiful. And so when I think about like the mission of the church being strictly evangelism, I agree with you. It's missing out on some of the most beautiful parts of what the kingdom of God is really about. Sure, is it one aspect? Yes. But it's not as beautiful as some of the other ones. It's not as like, genuine community, helping the poor. Like there's so much to the kingdom of God that is much more beautiful than this idea of just proclaiming the gospel to as many people that will listen. And like, that's our mission. No, like there's so much more beauty in being a Christian than that. I just think we settle.
I think you're right. That's such a good way to put it. Yeah. I don't think, people that are going and wanting to just get people to say yes to Jesus, like I get their heart. I get why. Like obviously, if you think that this Jesus makes all the difference to a person's life, can totally change and renovate it, why would you not want other people to come and experience it? But yeah, I think we just get the vehicle for transmitting that message a bit wrong sometimes. Because I'm thinking like, what would change me from a Christian to another perspective or something? I tell you what, it's not going to be picking up a random track. Like that's just not going to do it for me. It's going to take some intentional life-on-life interactions and having deep spiritual conversations. Sure. And I don't know why I would expect, something different from anyone else.
Yeah. And I think like, again, the church for a long time was like altar calls, just ask Jesus into your heart. And I think it's done some damage to people, not outside the church that have a now skewed view of what, church is really about, but also people like me inside the church who now have to rework, some of that. Because like, I mean, here at Rhythm specifically, we don't do altar calls every Sunday, and we've got some flack for that. I've honestly got some flack for that. Like people wish we would, and inviting people to follow Jesus. But again, like that's such a small piece of what the kingdom of God is like. Like you said before, we're inviting people into an alternate lifestyle. We're inviting people into like allow Jesus to inform their ethics, their thoughts, their decisions, their generosity.
Yeah.
Like Jesus now informs how we live. It's an alternate kingdom to what the kingdom of the world is. And I feel like, if your focus is like conversions, you miss out on, what Jesus is really getting at. Hey, they'll know you're my disciples by your love, not your ability to witness, your ability to, get converts. It's just, I don't know. I want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yes.
That is, not the mission of the church. So just going to take a different route here for a second. I want to talk a lot about like mission statements for churches, maybe even specifically ours, kind of how this more practically plays out for us.
Yeah, that's really good.
Especially here at Rhythm. Obviously, that's what we can speak to the most. It's hard to, speak for other churches, but, churches oftentimes will have a mission statement. And I feel like a lot of them are the same. They're like, love God, love people, which is cool. I get that.
Yeah, we should do that.
And often that summarizes it well. But sometimes they're a little bit more specific. Like ours is a little bit more specific.
Yes.
Ours is helping people find and follow the real Jesus. And there's a lot to that. And so I kind of wanted to spend some time unpacking that. So, I mean, it starts off by saying helping people, which we're coming alongside. We're journeying with. It's not just yelling and screaming at them saying, hey, convert. Hey, we're coming alongside. We're helping people find.
Yep.
Start there. Find.
Yes.
And that's a key word, I feel like, in our mission statement, because we feel like specifically, like our missions here at Rhythm is we want to be a church that unchurched people love to attend. And so we're helping them find who Jesus is.
Yeah.
And the real Jesus, which is, again, we'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
But finding Jesus, I feel like, is a key component.
Yeah.
What are some things about Rhythm specifically that you feel like we do a good job of helping people just find Jesus?
I think for me, you talked about like a church that unchurched people enjoy attending. And I find that almost as often as there are people that have no Jesus experience, that I'm trying to kind of help them to imagine this, we take people who I think have some prior Jesus experience and I think have some certain preconceived ideas of who Jesus is and what he's like. And so what I love, I think our church does really well too, is helps take their 2D Jesus that they have and really fill them out and say, okay, no, what was, his entire mission about? What broke his heart? What did he love? What does it look like to follow him in regards to how we relate to and understand our wealth or all these things? I think one of the things we do is just continually return and put the person of Jesus in front of them in the full context we see in the Gospels, not just like as a little point about, hey, he died for you, believe him. I think I love the fact that we introduce new people, but one of the things we do well here, I think, is also to help people rediscover this new Jesus.
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the most common stories we hear.
Oh, yeah.
Is like, I thought Christianity, religion, Jesus, this whole like church thing, I thought it was something, but now I've come to realize it's something completely different.
Yes.
And after hearing that over and over through the years, like Rhythm's been in existence, again, like our kind of new mission statement was kind of formed around this, that this is what we're doing well and want to continue to do this well into the future. It's helping people find and follow the real Jesus. Yes. A lot of times people have a misconception of who Jesus is really.
Yeah.
I feel like we do a great job of just, like you said, elevating Jesus to a point. We're saying like, hey, this is who he really is in light of like cultural context.
Yes.
So this is what he meant when he said this. It's not this, this God who is out to get you. He's not watered this God down, who, is trying to, manipulate you and get you to do things like whatever. A lot of times there's a misconception of who Jesus really is. And so painting a picture, elevating him to a space of saying, no, this is who he really is, I think is important. And yeah, go ahead.
And I just love the fact that in our mission statement, we combine and we have that two part of find and follow. Because I think a lot of times people are content to stop at the find. Like they found Jesus, like let's throw a hand clap, they're saved, we got him to the altar, whatever now.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's how I was raised.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, all they cared about was like the conversion numbers.
Yep.
Not like the following portion.
And I'm sure talking to them, they'd say, no, it's important that we follow Jesus, whatever. But again, how you work your services, what you tell people, all that, I think betrayed that sentiment and showed like, no, really, ultimately, you just want people to find him. Like if they follow him, that's like icing on the cake, I guess. Mm-hmm. And what I love about here is we want to keep those two things together and say like, hey, we want to find Jesus. It's important that if you haven't found him, you come to know him. But like, let's get serious and talk about what it means to follow him, because this brings us back to our mission. At the end of the day, we're not just a bunch of people who say, oh, I just can't believe I got, saved to go to heaven, woohoo, hand clap. God's like, hold on, no, I'm launching a project. I called Israel. I'm trying to do this thing in the world. I'm creating this community around my person, Jesus, who's empowered by the Spirit to go and make this difference in the world. Like, wow, that's the emphasis Jesus makes. That's the emphasis the New Testament makes. And so if we're stopping at finding and not moving on to following, I think we're missing the majority of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've heard just amazing stories through the years of people like tangibly, practically following Jesus, as in forgiving somebody that's hurt them.
Yeah.
Somebody saying, hey, I was really generous in this portion of my life, or I was able to finally, for the first time, fully surrender to Jesus. Like it's just stories over and over and over again of people actually following him, not just have found him, but now it's like beginning to transform their life. Marriages being restored, relationships with kids being redeemed, and things like that. Over and over, we hear these stories about, hey, me taking this plunge, me deciding I'm going to follow Jesus. Not only is just have I found him, but now me following him has led to practical changes in my life that have been absolutely incredible.
I think that's really some of my hope in talking about the mission of the church is I hope people kind of catch a vision or catch something exciting about what God's looking to do in kind of bringing this kingdom here and transforming the way we live our lives. And we have a unique opportunity as the church, as Christians, to provide that counter testimony to say, like, we can organize society different. The world can look different. The world can look more beautiful. And I think Christians could maybe get so much more excited about coming to church, instead of just thinking like, well, here I am to just maybe learn some more stuff about God. But if we can adjust that and say, what's our mission? Why are we gathering here? What are we looking to go and do in the world that's surrounding us? Because my goodness, the Christian message and the Christian way of organizing society is potent. It is the ability, I think, to change and transform society, people's lives. And I think we just settle. We're just good to be like, oh, hey, they heard about Jesus, they're going to heaven. And I want to be like, whoa. No, we're trying to bring heaven down here. Let's get after it.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. And again, churches for so long, it's like, again, you prayed this prayer, you're good. I'm going to heaven. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, especially here at Rhythm. We're really emphasizing on what are we doing right here, right now. Not someday, but right here, right now, today. And the last part of our mission statement, help people find and follow the real Jesus, meaning who he really is. I feel like there's a lot of things people have misconceptions about Jesus. We talked about this before, but I feel like the main one that we want to focus on, I think the one that really brings people life, the one that really brings people, joy and satisfaction, and the one that really find the most just kind of hope in is the fact that Jesus offers grace.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times people view Jesus as like this God who's out to get them, this God who's holding, this record book of right and wrong, this God who is condemning people, for whatever they've done and where they've been and things that have happened to them. But in Jesus, we find grace, we find love, we find mercy. And I think painting that picture of Jesus has been so beneficial to people. And that's what I love about Rhythm. I think, again, the most feedback we get here is that our church is real. And again, I think it's a direct reflection of understanding who Jesus really is.
Yes.
I think most people show up on a Sunday who they really are. There's not a lot of mask wearing. Again, that's how I grew up. You walk into an environment which everybody's pristine and clean and everybody's got it all figured out. But I think there's a lot of vulnerability here. I think there's a lot of, I love when people tell me, I just feel like, everyone's real, I love that because that is what that's who Jesus is. He is, that's who we want him to, he's full of grace and love and you're accepted, here.
Yeah.
And I feel like if people can sense that and get that vibe, with just in the audience, like, no matter where I've been, no matter what I've done, no matter what's been done to me, I'm welcome and accepted and loved here in this space. And that is who Jesus really is. That is what he's about.
Yes. That makes me think, just to jump in real quick, there's a quote by a theologian named Preston Sprinkle. That is his real name, ladies and gentlemen. Preston Sprinkle, but just a brilliant guy, a sharp thinker. But he talks about Jesus, and let me think of how he puts it. I'm going to try to do this as best I can. But he says something to the effect of Jesus held incredibly high standards for people, but showed them incredible grace when they fell short. And I want us to have both of those things in there. And I think we do a great job here at Rhythm at doing that. We get the summons to say, no, we're going to take seriously Jesus's call here. Like, he's calling us to roll up our sleeves and do some serious stuff, right? We need to follow him. At the same time, I think if you heighten that and you forget the second piece, where we run into some problems. But Rhythm, I think, gets this right too. It's that, yes, Jesus calls us to high standards. We're going to call us to high standards. We're going to call us to love our enemy. We're going to call us to sacrifice financially for the sake of the other. We're going to call ourselves to do all those difficult things. But on the other hand, no, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to mess up. And when we do, grace is there.
Yeah.
Where sin abounds, grace abounds more. And I just love how we attempt to hit that balance. It makes me feel good about what we're doing here as a church.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like Andy Stanley's point of like grace and truth, like finding that balance as a church, where some churches err one side too long or one side too much than the other. Some churches are heavy grace, like hey, anything can go, whatever, it doesn't matter what you do.
Forget about it.
Talk about Jesus calling people to a high standard, but they miss that. But at the same time, churches can also get into the rut of like just proclaiming truth and like this is what we're about. We're standing for truth, and there's no grace.
Yep.
So finding a balance in the middle, I feel like we do a good job.
Yep.
That's always the tension between grace and truth.
Let Jesus come to the woman that's caught in adultery and say, "Does no one condemn you?" I don't either. Yeah. There's grace there. He says, "Okay, now go. Sin no more." Right. Jesus has a concern for how she organizes her life because it affects her. There's a concern for us. God's not out there just to kill her a good time. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, another great episode.
Yeah, there's so much there, and I feel like I don't know. We could go on forever, but I'm hoping, really, my hope would be that, yeah, as people enter into this church space this next week, they'd get a little bit bigger picture of what's happening around them. I think I said the same thing last week. I just hope every time throughout the series, people show up to church and say, okay, I think I get this more. Oh, I'm taking note of what's going on. Oh, I want to participate more. So hopefully if that's you today, you're learning more about church, but hopefully getting more out of church as a result of this.
Sure. Awesome. Well, just a reminder, beginning in September, if you're listening on YouTube, this will just be audio only. So if you maybe jumped in late or skipped ahead and missed that portion, we announced it at the beginning. But yeah, just a reminder that if you watch on YouTube regularly, that will go away eventually. But you can always continue to find us Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It'll be audio only starting in September. But it's a good change, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about the direction of the podcast, and hopefully you are too. We're open to your feedback. So if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, or even just like constructive feedback on the production of the podcast, we'd love to hear that. If you're having issues, or whatever it may be, just let us know. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of The Current. We'll see you next week. Grace and peace.